The Galactic Council chambers hummed with the quiet efficiency of 10,000 civilizations conducting their daily business. Representatives from across the galaxy attended the quarterly assessment meeting, their diverse forms, crystalline entities, gaseous beings, and multi-tentacled creatures, all united in their technological superiority. Ambassador Keftar, his prismatic form catching the artificial starlight, accessed the latest scout reports with practiced boredom. The Outer Rim territories rarely produced anything of interest. When the Zephyrian reconnaissance data appeared on his display, he initially dismissed it as routine cataloging. Solar System Designation 7834 Alpha, he announced to the assessment committee. Third planet shows signs of emerging civilization. The holographic display materialized above the central platform, showing grainy surveillance images of a blue-green world. Primitive cities sprawled across the continents, connected by crude transportation networks. Atmospheric analysis revealed industrial pollution, a sure sign of early technological development. "Fascinating," murmured junior analyst Vexani, her iridescent tentacles curling with scientific curiosity. "What's their technological classification?" Keftar's form shimmered with what passed for amusement among his species. "They call themselves humans, still dependent on chemical propulsion for space travel. Their most advanced settlements barely extend beyond their home planet's immediate orbital space." The data streams painted a picture of laughable primitiveness. Nuclear fission was their pinnacle achievement. They waged territorial conflicts using projectile weapons and chemical explosives. Their fastest vessels required months to traverse their own solar system. "They've only recently developed quantum communication theory," Vexani observed, studying the technical readouts. "Should we consider first contact protocols?" "Absolutely not," Keftar replied firmly. "They lack faster-than-light capability, energy manipulation beyond crude fusion, and their social structures are fragmented into competing nation-states. They're at least 2 millennia away from galactic readiness." The committee members exchanged knowing glances, or their species equivalent. Another primitive world to be monitored from afar, perhaps revisited when they evolved beyond their current limitations. "Classification?" prompted the recording system. "Class D, emerging species, no strategic value," Keftar declared. "Implement standard quarantine protocols. No interference, no contact. Let them develop naturally." With bureaucratic efficiency, humanity's file was sealed and archived. Earth became just another protected primitive zone, deemed unworthy of galactic attention for at least several thousand years. The decision was unanimous, logical, and completely rational by every measure of galactic civilization. None of them could have predicted how catastrophically wrong they were. 3 years after Earth's dismissal, the tranquil rhythm of galactic civilization shattered in a single, terrifying moment. The Outer Rim sensor arrays, massive constructs that monitored the empty spaces between galaxies, detected something that defied every known law of physics and warfare. The Void Swarm had arrived. Emergency klaxons echoed through the Galactic Council chambers as Supreme Chancellor Vorthok materialized in his emergency form, his gaseous essence crackling with unprecedented urgency. Representatives from across the galaxy abandoned their routine deliberations, their attention focused on the horrifying data streaming from the frontier. "7 galaxies," whispered Analyst Prime Zethkol, his usually steady voice trembling. "Andromeda, Triangulum, the Greater and Lesser Magellanic systems, all gone, converted into raw materials." The holographic display showed the approaching nightmare, millions upon millions of vessels, each one a perfect killing machine of adaptive metal and malevolent intelligence. The swarm ships moved with coordination that transcended individual consciousness, their formations flowing like liquid death across the void. Intelligence reports painted an even more terrifying picture. The swarm didn't just destroy, they consumed. Every defeat made them stronger, as fallen enemies were instantly processed into additional units. Their technology adapted in real time, learning from each engagement and becoming immune to previously effective weapons. First contact occurred 6 hours ago, reported Admiral Kexthara of the Andromedian Defense Fleet. The pride of our military, 30,000 vessels equipped with our finest plasma weaponry and quantum shields. Status of the fleet, Chancellor Vorthok demanded. Completely annihilated, no survivors. The enemy suffered 0 casualties. The chamber fell silent, except for the horrified breathing equivalents of 10,000 species. The Andromedian fleet had been considered invincible, their technology representing the pinnacle of military engineering. Emergency mobilization, Vorthok declared, his form rippling with desperate determination. Every member species must contribute their entire military capacity. Pool all resources: Zephyrian plasma cannons, crystalline energy matrices, Netherian dimensional weapons, Aquarian bioships. Everything. As panic spread through the galactic communication networks, someone mentioned the quarantined worlds scattered throughout the Outer Rim. The primitive species, should we evacuate them? Vorthok's response was swift and dismissive. Impossible. They lack the technology to comprehend the threat, let alone escape it. Better they remain ignorant of their approaching doom. Earth wasn't even worth a warning message. Captain Sarah Chen had been patrolling the Mars-Jupiter corridor for 6 months without incident. The routine deep space assignment was considered a dead-end posting, monitoring asteroid mining operations and tracking space debris in the outer solar system. Her modified destroyer, the UES Defiant, was equipped with humanity's most advanced sensors, though they were laughably primitive by galactic standards. On what should have been another mundane Tuesday, those sensors began screaming impossible readings. "Control, this is Patrol 7, Chen transmitted back to Earth Command, her voice tight with disbelief. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures at grid reference Tango 77. Please confirm these readings." The response came immediately. "Patrol 7, we're showing the same data. Multiple contacts appearing at the system's edge. Jesus Christ, Sarah, there are thousands of them." Through her viewports, Captain Chen witnessed something that would fundamentally change humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. Massive vessels, some larger than Earth's biggest cities, materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their alien architecture defied human engineering principles, with surfaces that seemed to flow like liquid metal under starlight. But they weren't alone. Another fleet faced them, equally massive, equally alien, but somehow wrong. The second group's ships moved with predatory coordination, their dark hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Rodriguez from the sensor station, "they're fighting." The battle that followed lasted 3 hours and 47 minutes. Humanity's primitive instruments could barely process the scale of destruction unfolding before them. Weapons that tore holes in space itself exchanged fire across distances measured in astronomical units. Energy discharges that could have powered Earth's civilization for decades flashed between the opposing fleets like cosmic lightning. Captain Chen watched in horrified fascination as vessels the size of Manhattan were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. The physics-defying weapons created gravitational anomalies that her instruments couldn't even classify. And the beautiful, crystalline ships were losing. Badly. Control, the first group, they're being systematically destroyed. Whatever they're fighting, it's winning. When the battle ended, only empty space remained where thousands of ships had fought and died. The Dark Fleet, having absorbed the wreckage of their enemies, began moving deeper into the galaxy. President Martinez convened an emergency session of the United Earth government within hours. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced grimly, "we are not alone in the universe, and based on what we just witnessed, we may be next in line." While the remnants of the Galactic Council retreated to their heavily fortified core worlds, frantically constructing desperate defensive lines, humanity did what they had always done best when faced with impossible odds. They got creative. Dr. Elena Volkov, Earth's leading xenotechnology specialist, found herself thrust into the role of humanity's salvation. Working with barely 3 hours of sleep per day, she led a team of the planet's brightest minds in analyzing the battle debris that had drifted into the outer solar system. The fragments of alien technology were like nothing in human experience, materials that shouldn't exist, energy patterns that violated known physics. The winning fleet, they're not organic, she explained to the hastily assembled War Council, her presentation displaying molecular analysis of the dark metal fragments. They're artificial intelligences housed in adaptive nanomaterial shells. Incredibly sophisticated, but ultimately still machines following programmed parameters. General Harrison, his weathered face grim with determination, leaned forward. Machines can be beaten. What's their weakness? That's just it, Volkov continued, her excitement barely contained despite the dire circumstances. They're too perfect. Every decision optimized, every response calculated for maximum efficiency. They've conquered 7 galaxies by encountering logical, predictable enemies who fought conventional wars. She highlighted tactical analyses from the recorded battle. Look at their patterns, mathematical precision in formation, optimal weapon deployment, perfect resource allocation. They adapt to known threats because their programming allows for every conceivable logical response. But we're not logical, interrupted Admiral Torres, a spark of understanding in her eyes. Exactly. Human military doctrine has always embraced controlled chaos. We improvise, we break our own rules, we make decisions that don't make sense but somehow work anyway. Project Prometheus launched 72 hours later. Instead of trying to match alien technology, humanity's engineers focused on creating deliberate imperfection. Ships designed with redundant systems that served no logical purpose. Weapons that violated efficiency standards but remained unpredictable. Communication protocols that changed randomly mid-battle. We can't outthink them, General Harrison addressed the first volunteers of the human independent fleet, but we can out-crazy them. These machines have conquered galaxies full of rational beings. Time to show them what irrational humans can do. The fleet launched 3 months later, 200 vessels that represented humanity's greatest strength, beautiful, chaotic unpredictability in the face of impossible odds. The Titan's Gate Nebula had become the galaxy's final stand, a swirling maelstrom of ionized gas and dying stars that served as the last defensive position before the core worlds. Here, the remnants of 10,000 civilizations had gathered their surviving forces, 800,000 vessels representing the accumulated military might of galactic civilization. Facing them across the nebula's edge were 3 million Void Swarm ships, their dark hulls blotting out entire starfields. The battle had raged for 18 hours, and the outcome was inevitable. The swarm's adaptive algorithms had countered every weapon, anticipated every tactic, neutralized every advantage the Council forces possessed. Supreme Chancellor Vorthag, his gaseous form flickering with exhaustion and despair, transmitted his final message from the bridge of the dying flagship Eternal Harmony. To any who receive this transmission, the galaxy is lost. We have thrown everything at them, our finest minds, our greatest technologies, our bravest warriors. Nothing can stop. The transmission cut to static as the flagship's quantum core breached, taking with it the last hope of organized resistance. That's when humanity arrived. Admiral Sarah Chen, promoted from patrol captain to fleet commander in humanity's desperate mobilization, surveyed the impossible odds through her viewscreen. 200 human vessels, converted mining ships, retrofitted cargo haulers, hastily armed civilian craft, faced 3 million perfect killing machines. Swarm contact analysis complete, reported her tactical officer. They're not even adjusting formation. Threat assessment algorithms classify us as negligible. Chen smiled grimly. Perfect. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today, we're going to commit the greatest act of tactical stupidity in galactic history. Today, we prove that sometimes the worst plan is the best plan. Operation Chaos Monkey is authorized. Execute at will. The human fleet split into seemingly random groups, each pursuing tactics that violated every principle of space warfare. Some ships flew in spirals, others attacked backwards, several began broadcasting nursery rhymes on military frequencies. Captain Rodriguez aimed his crippled destroyer directly at a swarm dreadnought's primary weapon port. "If you can't beat them," he muttered, "confuse them to death." His ship's reactor detonated inside the enemy vessel's core systems, creating a cascade failure that consumed 50 nearby swarm units. The swarm collective paused, a hesitation that lasted only microseconds but represented the first crack in their perfect certainty. The disruption at Titan's Gate propagated through the Void Swarm's collective consciousness like a virus, spreading at quantum speeds across their networked intelligence. For 7 galaxies of conquest, their algorithms had processed every conceivable tactical scenario, cataloged every possible response, optimized for every logical threat. They had never encountered an enemy that used irrationality as a weapon. Captain Maria Santos found herself commanding what remained of the cargo hauler New Horizons. Her ship's hull breached in 17 places, life support failing, and half her crew unconscious from oxygen deprivation. By every rational measure, her vessel was destroyed. Instead, she ordered the engineering team to convert the ship's coffee machine into an improvised plasma cannon. "Captain, that's insane," protested her chief engineer. "The molecular structure can't possibly—" "Exactly," Santos grinned, blood trickling from a head wound. "That's the point. They can't adapt to something that shouldn't work." The coffee cannon fired once, its impossible energy discharge overloading 3 swarm vessels before the makeshift weapon melted itself into slag. The swarm collective dedicated processing power to understanding the weapon, power that wasn't being used to coordinate their perfect formations. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Commander Park jury-rigged her mining laser to fire in reverse, creating energy vacuums that collapsed swarm shields. Lieutenant Chen's crew used their ship's gravity plating to literally turn their vessel inside out mid-combat, appearing where the swarm sensors said nothing could exist. "Status report," Admiral Chen requested from her battle-scarred command ship. "We've lost 63 vessels," her tactical officer reported, "but we've disrupted approximately 30,000 swarm units. They're beginning to show coordination errors." On the Galactic Council surviving ships, stunned observers watched the impossible unfold. Ambassador Kethtar, his crystalline form dim with humiliation, transmitted on all frequencies. "Human fleet, this is the Galactic Council. We formally apologize for our previous assessment. Would you consider alliance?" Admiral Chen's response epitomized humanity's approach to diplomacy. "Little late for formal introductions, Crystal Boy. But sure, let's talk strategy. Right after we finish cleaning up the mess you couldn't handle." Meanwhile, the second wave of human reinforcements began arriving, not organized military units, but a chaotic mixture of converted luxury yachts, modified research vessels, and civilian transports armed with kitchen utensils and industrial tools. Humanity's response to extinction wasn't military precision. It was organized pandemonium on an unprecedented scale. The final confrontation erupted at the galactic core, where the Void Swarm had established their massive processing nexus, a mechanical planet-sized construct that served as the central hub for their collective intelligence. 4 million swarm vessels formed perfect defensive spheres around their base, their formations mathematically flawless and strategically impenetrable. The Galactic Council's last reserves, 500,000 ships representing the final military assets of 10,000 civilizations, took positions at the system's edge. Every admiral, every tactician, every strategic mind in the galaxy understood the hopelessness of their situation. The swarm's defenses were absolutely perfect. Then humanity arrived with their masterpiece of tactical insanity. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, surrounded by the chaotic mixture of military officers, civilian volunteers, and refugee scientists that had become humanity's war council. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted beings," she announced, "today we're going to attempt something so monumentally stupid that it will either save the galaxy or get us all killed. Possibly both." Operation Pandemonium began with the humans doing the unthinkable. They broadcast their complete battle plans on every frequency, in every language, ensuring the swarm would intercept everything. Every tactical maneuver, every weapon deployment, every contingency plan transmitted in perfect detail for the enemy to analyze. The Swarm Collective immediately began processing this intelligence windfall, their algorithms working overtime to calculate optimal counters for every transmitted strategy. Their perfect formations shifted to neutralize 10,000 different potential human attacks, their weapon systems reconfigured to counter every possible threat. That's when the humans implemented strategy number 10,001, the plan they'd never transmitted because they'd literally invented it on the spot. Half the human fleet accelerated directly toward the local star, using its gravitational field for impossible slingshot maneuvers that brought them at the swarm from angles that defied physics. Others separated their ships into component parts, reassembling inside enemy formations like mechanical puzzles. Some crews actually jettisoned themselves in escape pods loaded with improvised explosives, turning their own personnel into guided ammunition. The chaos was magnificent. Contradictory commands flooded the swarm network as their collective consciousness tried to process the beautiful impossibility of human warfare. Ships began firing on each other, perfect formations collapsed into spectacular disaster. In the end, it wasn't superior technology that defeated the Void Swarm. It was the one thing no machine could ever understand, the magnificent audacity of beings who looked at certain death and said, "Hold my beer."